Welcome, welcome, and please accept my
Thank you.
apology
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
that.
That's all right.
Yes,
We know how we work this show. It has to happen.
yes,
And
thank you.
it is very dynamic. And in fact, let me say to the audience that you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Marcia has to sit down and spend a lot of time working this out, and you
Yes,
have a routine, but then you have to accommodate, you know, our needs as panelists and so on. And I hope Pastor Ferdinand has had a good day and is enjoying, because
yes,
and then you have to rework them. And I will say congrats to Kimar. We know the history of third parties, so we will see how that plays out. I know his interest in politics. He's young, and we wait to see who will be supporting him. I listen with interest. Rose has a way with words. I love to I love to hear how she arranges her thoughts. And oh yeah, there it is, the logo. It's handshakes, an NP, New National Party, new
yes,
voices, new vision, new generation for national progress. And we will see. In fact, I trust we will capture the history of his party and as he goes forward.
hmm
But I also listened very carefully to your discussion about the events today, the Barbados Labour Party's annual grand picnic excursion, whatever else is. It's much more than that entertainment exercise. And when we agreed that I would come on, I thought of something which touches on that. And I hope Dave might have been able to receive an email from me, which is the website for the regathering exercise, because that is a year-long event, 52 weeks of celebration. And having sat as former foreign minister, where we undertook an initiative to formally engage the diaspora, I can appreciate an event like this. That's the website there. And in fact, I don't know if it was my computer, but when I tried to click on a couple of these things, we had some problems. Now, I had some problems. So if you go to About Dave, let me see what comes. Okay, what comes up there? We hopefully can see the colors. The colors beyond the message. There were some highlights. Scroll down and see if we can. Well, this seems to be showing you some other things, our missions, our values, whatever. And this is a bit more information than I saw. But I was looking at one of the panels. If you can go to events, maybe. Interesting look there. But as I was saying, this is a 52-week event intended to galvanize the diaspora to come home. And so one of the things that they did was to break down the events into parishes. And I came up with the title that, we gathering, whether, it's time for a report. I would call it a report card from government. And I was here with this big book, and I'll come back to this. This is the estimates for this year. Because at the end of the day, when I look at the events taking place, or which took place this evening on the East Coast, and I look at the events that are taking place in relation to the gathering, and then I look at the finances allocated to the gathering, I ask myself, what is happening to this money? Where is this money going?
mm,
And I hope there's an expression. I hope I get it correctly. People say you put your dumplings in my rice, you gonna end up with some of my rice on those dumplings. You understand? So if you get a little
yeah,
mix up. So what you don't want to, and so I took some time because I started to do this before, and I look at it also against the background of another year-long event that we had in this country back in 2016, when Barbados celebrated its 50th anniversary. And while the allocations of funds, you might have had different ministries contributing, there was a central secretariat and it had a budget, and you can go back and see the budget, if I remember correctly, was about $6 million. And I say that's 2016, that's almost 10 years ago, but I plan to pull up and do some and the information and do some comparison. But one of the things that struck me, Marcia, was that, and I would begin at what I would call well, it's part of the exercise on the 31st of March, because remember, the budget for 2025-26 goes into effect and has to be passed in Parliament before April 1st in order for government to spend. Part of that process as well is an exercise where if there were funds, if government had to spend funds for the year that was ending, it would go and vote supplementaries. And the interesting thing was that this government would have had a massive supplementary. It was I would call it like a block vote. It's $200-something million. I can go back. But of interest in there was a provision where the government had the sum of $14 million, right? The sum of $14 million to the National Cultural Foundation. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the document here. This is taken from documentation which went to Parliament. So it says the sum of $14 million provides for the execution of the gathering, Carry Festa, and independence celebrations by the NCF. That's the sum total description. So I would want to know, and in fact, there was also a second sum, and this is interesting, that was allocated, so as they were making sure that they had all the monies to cover last financial year's expenses, that's where the supplementaries come. There was a sum of $14 million to bring to account funds advanced for payment to Wang Ho Space Structure Engineering Company.
Wang Ho?
Wan, WANHAO Space Structure, SPACE, Structure Engineering Company Limited, for the amphitheater project and to undertake capital projects. And if I remember correctly, the amphitheater project was at the Botanical Gardens. That I will confirm, because I was trying to pull all this together quickly based on my recollection. I went to find the documentation. Now, that $14 million, I would have to search. So I will come back to this again. I would have to search to find out what amount of that went to regathering. Because remember, the regathering exercise started in January. So we had January, February, and March, which would have fallen under the previous financial year. That's 2024-25, which ended March 31st of this year. Okay. So I could hazard a guess that a big chunk of that went to regathering, because Carry Festa is yet to come. And I will refer to this year's budget where provisions are made for both regathering and Carry Festa.
Right. I think it's $4 million for Carry Festa.
Carry Festa, yeah, in this year's budget. But then if you go to, and I'll deal with the numbers first, and then I'll talk about the activities and ask the question, what are we really playing for? So, for example, and I wasn't able to go through the entire estimates. I was trying to do it on my computer, but I was having problems pulling up certain documents. I don't know, it was giving trouble. I was wondering if they were going to allow me to get onto the show. But anyway, so if you went now, so in addition to that supplementary, where a significant part, I am sure, of the 14 million goes to regathering, we have the following as some of the areas covered. You had, for example, the Prime Minister's Office on the Culture, $2,500,000. All of this goes to regathering. Under the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, that's Head 27, you had two sums. One from tourism was $50,000, and that was 0706. These are codes that you would find in the estimates. International Transport also had a $50,000, so that's an additional $100,000. Okay, so far you have 2,500,000 plus an additional 100 million from 2025-26. So that's $2,600,000. Yeah. Then you have from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade $622,302, right? And then we have, I left out this figure. I will have to go back and look at it. I think it was $100,000. Let me look at the then under the Ministry of Environment and National Beautification, you had an allocation there as well. Oh yes, here I have it. I was looking National Beautification, Regathering Vision 2025, and the sub program is 0420, and for the year 2025, the estimates is about 1,315,000. So, and then you can look at the one that went for the year before. So and then of course, even the Ministry of Energy and Business Development, in the case of the Ministry of Environment, they identified the gathering exercise as planting 1 million trees. Okay, so they were looking to plant 1 million trees, and then the Ministry of Energy and Business Development, and they simply say to facilitate the celebration of the gathering, 25,000. And there were some others, which we can do. So when you start to sum that up, Marcia, I ask myself, what are we doing with these many millions of dollars? Because I didn't get a chance, given the time constraints, to add them all up and to finish the calculations. And I can promise anybody who's listening that they can get the totals later. What are we doing to with these millions of dollars? And I will give you a sample just so you remember. Remember that we had the gathering in we started in St. Lucie. I think that's where they started. We had in St. Peter. We had in St. Joseph. We had St. Thomas, I believe. St. John is May. And so, for example, in St. Joseph, you had a heritage hike to Hackleton's Cliff. Okay, scroll down a bit, Dave. Yes, you had January, St. Lucie, February, St. Peter, March, St. Thomas, April, St. Joseph, and May, St. John. And then they had some on the water adventure identified as part of where they be gathering, I think, from the notes that I was able to pick up, partner with Atlantis Submarine, according to the notes, and the St. Peter Parish Organizing Committee, to do something or the other. In essence, when you look at the activities to date, the question is, are these activities that would have attracted significant numbers of Barbadians to come home? One. And so at the end of the day, how many persons have returned home to participate? To what end? So are we spending money to have activities largely patronized by Barbadians at the end of the day? I will also ask the question, are we spending money on regathering activities at all in significant amounts, etc.? And it really makes me raise this, because people are complaining about the challenges that some parents are having, some of the elderly are having, people trying to get their children to school, pensioners not necessarily being able to afford the best meals and so on after they pay their utility bills, etc. And I think it is important that we hear, because we are seeing a lot of events. We are seeing events with a large number of artists. And my question I would ask, are the people who attend these things primarily Barbadians? So are we really giving Barbadians all of these treats? To what end? I don't know if I will pause there, Marcia, if you have any questions or comments that you might have in relation to this whole regathering exercise. And
I'm listening here. I didn't, I'm listening all the different, listening as you talk about all the different ministries that and how much, was allocated to them. My understanding from listening to everybody and reading about this regathering is that they were, yes, they're going to get some from the NCF budget, but that they were supposed to take from all of these different ministries. But when you look at the level of the events that are produced, I mean, how much money it is to produce a karaoke kind of a, the events are so low quality that you're wondering, where did we put all these millions?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? It's something is not adding up when you see the quality of the events.
No, that's exactly my concern, because at the end of the day, so you are covering expenses for these events, Mike, and as you said, events that should not run us into those kind of numbers. And then in addition to that, you are having events where the primary target is for engaging, getting Barbadians living overseas to come home and enjoy our heritage, participate, and at the end of the day make a contribution. So I noticed I said that somebody said to me, I must stop saying at the end of the day. And when
That's
I
your
when I
favorite.
catch myself. But the reality is, what financial or economic impact has this series of activities, have these series of activities relating to the gathering exercise, what impact have we seen so far? Because we've gone through a third of the year, January, February, March, April, and we are about to start May. And are we seeing Barbadians come home? It's a year-long event, and clearly, if we contrast that with what had been done before, it was an activity. The diaspora conference was scheduled to coincide with the crop over event because of persons' limited financial resources. Perhaps the need to travel with families, including children, get double benefits, so to speak, for your expenditures to come home. And I really have been looking at the programs and wondering, what is the real story? Let me put it that way. What is the real story? You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, as you said, we need to get a report card on it. And Barbadians, use your pens. Not, we don't use pens to write anymore, but you know um write about it, ask questions about it, ask questions on your social media pages, ask questions in articles to the newspaper. But it's important, accountability is important. We are seeing where this whole entertainment, this is what is being used by this government, so people will forget the fact that they're hungry, forget the fact that they cannot pay their utility bills, forget the fact that they can't pay the land tax, they can't take care of themselves. And so we are given parties upon parties, so that we gather. And as Mr. Thorne he called it, that it would just be a whole set of just betting. And basically that is what we're seeing. Or if they have I think it's something I saw about a trail, all of that can be millions of dollars. I can't see where the million of dollars being spent in this. It just seems, I'm not as diplomatic as Miss McClean. It seems like corruption. It seems like it's a way to give your friends, a little something extra. All of the service providers, who are the service providers, ask the questions. Do the research. All of us, we are part of the loyal opposition. That's what we do. Miss McClean, any final comments in this section before I
No,
bring in Mr. Lewis, who I'm going to beg for all the mercies
no,
this
I would say go straight ahead. I just continue to be concerned that we need to have full transparency. And this is one of the areas in which we can see money scattered out. We're talking about gathering, but we see money scattered all over,
Yes.
and no specific elements of the exercise being attributed, just a generic description of these funds.
Well. Okay. Um, Yes, Miss McLean, I don't know if I know you had to rush out, and Rose has to let me know, Mrs. Corbin has to let me know if she's able to come back in. She has to let me know, please. Um, Thank you, Mrs. Corbin. Just let me know because I know sometimes she's yes. Miss McClean, is there any comment that you want to make as we wait on yeah. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I actually went outside the outdoors for a minute. And so I missed a little bit. So just to be clear, because this whole episode with this gentleman here, I'll try to remember his last name again, Nichols, Mr. Nichols, at the school and so on, because he's not an MP, he's not the candidate yet. It's almost as he's trying to force somebody's hands. He turned up at the school earlier than the other people typically do. They tend to go a day or so before the exam and give the pep talks and everything. So he seemed to have been trying to get ahead of somebody else. So so beyond the St. Joseph scenario, I am wondering what is the game being played and who else. I mean, I've heard other names. I think that's the area that he grew up in or came from, I believe. But I know I was hearing some other names that might have been preferred choice.
Yeah,
Not,
there's a call here, but finish your
yeah.
thought, Miss
So
McClean.
I
There's a
was saying that
call.
I was
Yes.
hearing a name that might have been the preferred choice of the prime minister. That's what the allegation. So my question is, what really is the intention? And why is it, and how does that inform what's happening here? But it just speaks to some interesting times.
Propaganda must be addressed. Very
And
important.
it is also important to say that people who will go out there vilifying or trying to besmirch the name of Miss Dujon are some of the same persons who would want to tell you that they're the strongest advocates of Caribbean unity, you know, and that is a problem. So, in other words, you're saying one thing and acting in another in a way that's convenient to you because you recognize that she's a strong candidate, and that's why I hope, Marcia, you can get the two of them, the two opponents, on the show and let people see and hear two of them simultaneously. But
Yes.
I suspect I know the outcome of the invitation. Well, it wouldn't be Mr. John because she's on the show, been on the show already. So I suspect, but do it so that I won't have to wonder. We'll get to know if both parties would agree to come.
Yes.